exactly. Well, and so with that, I mean, there's a lot of data out there, and it's obviously challenging to take on and the like as well. But how do you guys decide what is most useful to your team and the overall colleagues at BH in terms of all these different available data sets, both internally and externally, that you look at?
For us, what we have found is that uh, when we get down to the data, we have a couple of different ways that we pull in the data that different teams want. So it depends on who you're talking to as to what data we're gonna, our asset managers want to look at something different than our regional managers sometimes. And so we want to pull in that end user and ask what they want. But, what we have found is that it is really important to us to have that resident level data so that we can drive actionable insights on the property level, but also that external data has proven to be very important to us because without it, we're able to find a correlation in just about anything if we're only using our data. And so pulling in that external data kind of gives us a benchmark and allows us to benchmark ourselves to the rest of the MSA or to the rest of a particular KPI. Um, Instead of trying to build comparisons in that bubble, we're able to branch out and say this is good or this is bad, as opposed to just with blinders on saying this is our BH standard, and so we feel really good about that.
So, what kind of challenges then do you face, just in terms of both getting this data into your platform, and also, honestly, as a product person, getting users to adopt your platform and wanting to actually leverage it in the way that you see is best for the organization as a whole?
That depends on who you ask. So, biggest challenge is relative, right? So, when I talk to the analysts, the biggest challenge that they have right now is finding that piece of data that will be actionable, right? Getting that fire hose of data and kind of pulling it back to what do we need and what's going to be important to us. How can we draw? How can we take all of this complicated data and turn it into actionable insights for our operations teams? From my point of view, it's getting clean data, right? So we have all of this data. How do I get it down to the data that's actually usable? And so cleansing the data can be time consuming and it is a big challenge. We have started sharing our outliers and errors with our end users to make them aware of, these are the outliers that we saw. If there's a bad input, please go in and fix it. But one of the biggest time sucks that we have is cleansing that data, making sure that what we're working with is actually good data.
Marker's in the business of doing a lot of that as well. So I'm curious. We have obviously data about rent, population, income, employment, demographics, all kinds of things. And I know BH is using that, which is great. But can you kind of provide a little bit more information on how you all leverage the Markerr data, as well as what kind of value it provides to the firm?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have rent data, population, income, demographics, all on that granular level. And so that data gives us insight into all sorts of things, regional migration. So we can overlap the Markerr data with search data, search engine data, and application data. So we can see where people are moving from and where people are moving to. And then we can make marketing decisions to market to the right people at the right time using the right medium. Permit and rent data, we also use that to determine multifamily and single family development trends. Our asset management, acquisitions, and equities teams are using that along with income and industry data by MSA. And then we have it down into the zip code, right? That allows us to identify, this is really exciting, allows us to identify that market elasticity and renovation potential. So we can tap into what direction and what projection we're seeing in a particular market, and we can say we've hit the top of our market, or we have room here at this particular community to do a renovation to add some value based on real data, on real numbers for that whole MSA, and not just our intuition and our loan data. So adding that Markerr data in is really a game changer for us to be able to build out our strategy for a value add shop, especially recognizing and then planning out that strategy is crucial.
And then in terms of how you all choose where to go next from a development standpoint, obviously, I mean, data is a huge play of that, and I would assume you try to look at new markets you can go into as well. Is there additional things that are really key for where you want to look to next?
So we are, along with everyone else, we're looking at machine learning and at projections and continuing to pull in more of that external data so that we have the bigger picture. One of the big finds, a few years in was that having our own data was amazing. It was fantastic to be able to say this is our historic data and these are the things that we know are likely to happen again. But being able to overlap with that external data gives us a whole new set of insights that allow us to really make some wise decisions, some truly more holistic decisions outside of just occupancy and rents. Right, we're able now to look at what's happening in that whole MSA and what's likely our next move, what direction should we be moving in. And so continuing to pull in that external data, continuing to overlap it and look for correlations in new ways, fill in the holes with that machine learning and project out. Here's some the direction you guys should be moving in.
And I assume, I mean, with kind of the asset management strategy in mind, you all have, you're really looking at what assets are performing well across your portfolio, and like you mentioned, when to renovate and when not to renovate. I'm sure there's a disposition part of that you look at as well. Are there kind of key trigger points where you're able to go back to leadership and say, all right, this is an indicator or an early warning or a sign for an investment opportunity, and kind of how does that process just work internally? I'm kind of curious.
Yeah. So interestingly, we have an asset management team. So we have an asset management department who is led by just the smartest people in the room. And we work with them directly to help build out models so that they can watch for triggers and alerts and let them know when we should be looking at this particular community for the next step. And so they have some really great insights into when we should be, refinancing, when we should be disposing, when we should be looking at particular insights into particular communities. And they use all of the data that we have together to build out those reports and help them kind of skip that beginning step.